I'm not using a timer. I'm going to try. I'm going to really try to make this brief. Those who know me know that that's virtually impossible. I bloviate and I get off on rabbit trails about Professor Peabody and Rocky, well, it's not the Rocky Horror Picture Show, it's that cartoon that was called Bullwinkle and Rocky and Bull. Anyway, look, let's look at Professor Wayback, or Peabody, the little dog. He's Einstein, right? So he's sitting there, and the little fella that's, just a little geeky kind of guy, maybe 12 years old, he's looking down. He always has his dog with him. He says, "Professor, what is the definition of mental illness?" And Professor Peabody looks up at him and says, "Well, to understand mental illness, we've got to go back in history." And so they said, "Well, Professor, how far do you want to go back?" "We're going all the way back to the caveman and then work our way up." Now, in this cartoon, he would abbreviate each age because they had a way back time machine that they'd set in. But watching these cartoons again and again and again and again, I've come up with my own cartoon theories. I think that I'm going to simplify it, I'm going to oversimplify it. I think 99% of all mental illnesses are misdiagnoses. Why are they misdiagnosed? What do you think? Drugs. If they can label you this bipolar or this psychotic or this neurotic or this and this or this, they can develop drugs for each individual category. And it's making these damn drug companies rich. Okay? Now we're being covered up with fentanyl from the southern border. Is that the only cure for mental illness? Just take a pill and be done with it? Some would think it's better that way than to listen to a psychiatrist try to drill holes in your head or give you shock treatments or say, well, which would you rather have, a frontal lobotomy or a bottle in front of me? And then those guys turn to alcoholism and drink themselves to death. But think about it, people. Think about it. God, let's go way back. In the caveman days, they didn't know what mental illness was, but what they did know was that Charlie, Baba Boo Boo or whoever it was that got trapped in that hole by a dinosaur and stayed there for 3 months, couldn't come out. And by the time they drug him out, he was skinny as a rail, and he never had the same mindset. He had never gotten any sleep. Sleep deprivation is the key to 99% of all mental illness. Forget all these labels that they put on people. Listen, a dream cycle washes your subconscious mind and all the things during the day that you store up in your subconscious. It washes it clean. You have to have at least 4 dream cycles to maintain your sanity. That's 4 hours of solid, healthy sleep. If you're not getting at least 4, then you're going to be sick. Eventually, you're going to develop some type of rash or psychosis, or something's going to go wrong because your body controls your mind and your body. It's all holistic, okay? So how do we cure this? Well, that's a good question. I still haven't come up with an answer, but I am doing what I think is helping me personally, even though I'm still kind of fruity right now. It's because I'm over the Christmas high when you have to buy gifts and gifts and gifts and gifts. You got to buy. And that stresses the hell out of me. So I tend to lose sleep during Christmas. And they say that most suicides take place during the Christmas holidays. That's a fact, Jack. Check it on Google if you don't believe me. The Bible, and I hate to get back to religion, but the Bible says money is the root of all evil, and it's also the cause of mental illness domestically. Now, in wartime, it's just survival. It's the root of all evil. If you can't survive, you're going to go nuts. When my father was in a foxhole in Iwo Jima, where they raised the flag, he said that he got so stressed out, they wouldn't even let you stand up out of the foxhole because if you did, the Japs would blow your damn head off. They were that pinned down with dead Marines all around. They were stacking them up like wood piles around each foxhole. They had dead Marines. They used them for sandbags. That's all they were good for. They had been dead for days, and they were starting to stink. And you could hear soldiers at night in the foxholes puking their guts out because they couldn't take it anymore. The stress levels were off the chart. And they wonder why our soldiers come back so fucked up. Well, they come back from Vietnam, they got spit on by the hippies after defending our freedom, against the Japs. Those guys were treated like heroes. But the Vietnam guys like me in that era, we were spit on. We were looked down upon like trash. Oh, you're a baby killer, are you? I had friends that were hippies. I had friends that were in the military. I was kind of like a Forrest Gump. I was kind of caught between a rock and a hard place. I never could understand how to relate to women until I met my wife. And she taught me the meaning of life. And that's a family and stability, something I never had growing up. Never. I had a very, very dysfunctional childhood. I'm not going to get into the weeds because it's none of your goddamn business. But I will tell you this. Don't ever piss me off. Don't ever piss me off. I said, fucking you, don't ever piss me off. Because I can be a mean motherfucker. Mean motherfucker, and I'm the real McCoy. Okay? Does that explain a lot to you? If it doesn't, go think about it. Now let's get back to the good book. Because that's where it all started. And that's where I'm going to end this conversation. We don't have the ability to cure all mental illness. There's only one entity out there that can completely wash and forgive yourself of your sins, and that's Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. It's that simple. Now, who is Jesus Christ? The same guy that he was 10,000 years ago, and that God was called Horus. It was an Egyptian god that also had 12 disciples. He was crucified and he rose on the third day, rose from the dead. Okay, he could also raise dead himself. He could perform miracles like walking on water. Sound kind of familiar? Well, it ought to be. I at one time, when I was a pure atheist agnostic, I would say things like, well, all religions are mankind's pathetic attempt to explain away the unexplainable. But you know what? There's always going to be a religion out there because, in my humble opinion, there's a God gene in your brain. I don't know where it comes from, but we all have to worship something. It's the problem with what we're in the process of worshiping in this country. We're a capitalistic country. We're the greatest country that has ever existed, including the Roman Empire. We have more influence over world power than anybody. Now, bring it on, Russia. Bring it on, China. Bring it on, Arabs. Bring it on, Mexican cartel. But in the meantime, let's not have a civil war. Fuck politics. Fuck them. They're in it for the money. It doesn't matter who's in power. Trump, Biden. I know it sounds like that's insanity, but Trump has nothing to do with what's going on in our life. Neither does Biden. The corruption is systemic. It permeates every level. It's in our education system. It's in our trans system out in California. They're recreating a new pronoun, CRT language. It's in our, goes from the schools, go all the way through the college. They're indoctrinating our kids. We don't have the same values that we had 50 years ago. So get used to it. The two words that I can sum all this up with is things change. And I don't care if you call it the PPP or the we, or whatever. You can build your platform whatever you want. Colonial Penn has the PPP, price. They try to outbid everybody on life insurance. They don't work. They're in it for the money. So what do? We worship people at the top of the pyramid while we're down, the little people like me and you and everybody else, trying to lift their pyramid. And in the middle, there's a big eyeball. That's on our dollar bill. Check it out. It's a Masonic symbol. And I'm not a Mason. But the shit staring us in the face has been a snake that bit you. The Constitution is extremely valuable to us. We need to abide more by its rules And these idiots that are passing all these laws are giving a blind eye to Antifa and all the poor little rich kids that are coming, stirring up trouble in the poor neighborhoods, making them burn down their own houses and burn down their own businesses, kill each other. They're trying to create a civil war between blacks and whites. It's like, tell the blacks, if they're white, kill them. Kill all the whiteys. If they're white, we're telling them the South will rise again. Can't win. If we're in the midst of a civil war and we get invaded by all four sides of those big jumbo powers out there, we're going to be in trouble. This is our last chance to get our shit together. We've got to turn to God for help. It doesn't matter to me if he doesn't even exist. It's the concept. All the way back to the Hindus, there was a concept. It was called Hare Krishna. He was like Jesus back then. And that's the oldest religion there is. Before that, there was a caveman, there was fire. And before that, they said there was the land of Atlantis. And before that, there was somebody, maybe a civilization on Mars, that had a huge thermonuclear war, wiped out their atmosphere. Do we want to end up like those guys? And is the moon really hollow? And are there flying saucers? And how do you explain ghosts? I don't know. Pragmatically, who cares? Does it affect me personally? Yeah, it affects me. All this digital shit like Bitcoin and CBDC. You know what CBDC is, don't you? That's the United States is fixing to introduce a new cryptocurrency to compete with Bitcoin, because Bitcoin right now is it's permeated the entire globe. It will be if Russia and China and Mexico, if they took us over, we're going to be the new center of world power. And who is orchestrating this shit? Who the hell cares? They're the guys with all the money, all the power, and all the influence. And if we worship these people, we are sinning again. Sinning. It's a sin to worship humans. These people are human. They have established a dynasty that they passed on. Or maybe it's one man that's broken the code of longevity. Maybe he's living for the next million years. Who knows? Maybe it's an alien. Who cares? If it turns out to be anything alive that I can touch and feel, am I going to worship that entity? No. He's just smarter than I am. I'm a monkey, and he's an Einstein. But I'm not going to worship that son of a bitch. I'm going to go crawl under a rock and hide until he either kills himself or finds another bigger entity than himself that stomps him down. It's a vicious circle in the universe, and it will never end. Scientists claim, and this is the people that are UFO advocates, they say there's a lot of stuff at Area 51. Who cares? They say Nixon showed it to the honeymooners. His name was, the fat guy. What was his name? Help me, wait a minute. I'll think of it in a minute. Jackie Gleason was called up by Nixon. They were friends. He says, I got something I want to show you. And so Jackie went to the president's office, President Nixon, who happened to be one of the smartest guys that's ever walked the earth, but he was too smart. They busted him. You know what they did to him? It was Watergate. He made him resign. Come to my office. I want to show you something. So he came to Nixon's office, and Nixon escorted him down into the bowels of the White House. That he lifted in an elevator, went out the back door. He had a limo waiting with blacked out windows, and he took him down to the airport and flew him out to that area. I don't know where that is, in Arizona, Montana, whatever. Anyway, wherever Area 51 is located. And they landed, and he says, okay, now this is going to blow your mind. They got off the jet, and he, president in hand with Jackie, went right into the hangar where they had something. They opened up. Of course, all the soldiers were standing at attention because it was the president of the United States, and it was a fucking UFO, a real UFO. Now, if that's a true story, and they claim it is, I can't prove it. You can't prove it. I don't have anything more than secret clearance. I remember when I was in the Army, I was in A442 Alpha. I couldn't go in there and listen to what the generals were doing. That was their business. My job was to sit there and type, and I never have been good at typing. I did it with 2 fingers. Unpack, unpack, unpack. And then they had 12 guys in front and 12 guys beside me, and they went redundant to correct errors. It was like an assembly line. I had no idea what I was typing, and most of it was typing, it was code name, this or that or the other. But yeah, as a veteran, I was pretty much kept in the dark. Even though I was a captain, I was nothing more than a glorified secretary to the generals. I got to serve coffee. Wow. Well, when I walked out on campus, I was a hero, you know. At one time, when I went to Fort Benning, I mean, everybody there is just about private except a few officers. I was a big kingpin there, but I was still doing my job. 42 Alpha, administration, AG, go figure. That's what my expertise is in, administration, filling out forms, etc., etc. So I make the perfect service officer, right? Except for one thing, I'm not on a payroll, so I can't handle classified documents, or actually, I can't do the actual work that I'm depending on the real service officers, which is in Lawrenceville. They got a clinic out there, and they got the big hospital down in Claremont. Those are the guys that do the heavy lifting. Well, take that back. Marie, always get her last name mixed up. I'm just going to say Marie. She used to be the one that we used at the Post 127 American Legion here in Sugar Hill, Georgia, which is just a northern suburb of Atlanta, Georgia. Atlanta's where I was born. Atlanta's where I'll die. And my childhood, the only thing that rescued me from the insanity of my childhood was the Army. Thank God there's an Army. Now, if you look at Full Metal Jacket, that'll give you a little taste of what it's like joining the military. You should see that movie. It's a must. Full Metal Jacket. When I came out of the Army, I met the girl of my dreams, and then my whole life changed. At one time, I was going to be a psychiatrist studying mental illness for extremely mentally people, developmental psychopathology. I know a little bit about that now. I've forgotten most of it. I don't want to know. Instead, she said, look, let's start a business. I said, okay, what kind of business? She says, well, are you good at money? I said, no, I'm terrible. I spend it. If I got it in front of me, well, don't be a stockbroker then. She says, what about securities? I mean, are you good at, would you like to help people or protect them? I said, yeah, let's go insurance. So I learned how to sell insurance, got fully licensed, and I started going door to door. And eventually she said, you know, I had to have contracts. I was like an independent agent. She said, look, let's start a business. I said, hey, great. She had her license, okay? So we started a business, and I've been in insurance ever since, 30 years worth. Right here in Atlanta, Georgia, independent agency, sells everything with everybody, but just in Georgia. Then I retired. They bought my agency back from me. It was a franchise agreement. And I had enough money to retire, but not enough. Not as much as we would like to have. I could have, you know, replaced some stuff in the house. The wood was starting to rot. I bought this real expensive home, and now I've got to maintain the upkeep. So what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Well, let's go back to work. Well, honey, I'm almost 80 years old. She says, it doesn't matter. It will help you live longer because your mind will be sharp. I said, look, as long as I'm getting my sleep, I'll be fine. Well, guess what, people? It's a 3-year training program. It takes 3 years to learn this new job that I'm taking on. And yeah, I get paid, but the valuable part of it is I'm learning every single regulation and nuance about every area of life, health, property, casualty, commercial, workers' comp, on and on and on and on and on, almost into infamy. And I'm learning it not just in Georgia, but in Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama, all over the southeast, the northwest, the south, the northeast, the whole country, including California. It's crazy as their CRT languages, and they are.
This voice keeps waking me up. Is there anything you can do about that?
Yep, I can go to bed.
I've got
All right.
You know, you can stay here.
Okay, hang on. Hang on.
You'll lay your coat.
Hold on. I'm not going to do that. I'll be to bed in a minute. Okay. Now you see, I have to deal with a woman that needs her sleep. But see, this is when illness starts. You find something that worries you, you're going to stay awake. Russians have done studies about this. They kept people awake for months on end in a crazy house where loud music was played. They wouldn't allow them to sleep. And after about a year, the ones that survived it were absolutely bananas crazy. They went in to visit and retrieve these people. And the ones that were still alive, they were in there eating their own skin. They're actually self-cannibalized their own bodies. So all I'm saying is, if you get enough sleep, the dream cycle that washes your mental capacities, your frontal lobes. There's two of them. They're connected together. Your back of your brain. That's your subconscious area. That's your area where you go to dream. All of the areas of the brain need to be cleansed every day. You need to go through at least 8 washings. Each dream cycle will last about an hour, roughly. Depends on each person. But that's why they say you need 8 hours of sleep. Because if you can get that solid brainwashing, natural, washing of the mind, you'll not develop any mental illness. And when you do face a serious situation, you'll be able to handle it much better, much more level-headed. So with that, I bid you all, now listen to me. PPP means purpose. The second P is process. And the third P is payoff. So if you got a purpose in life, establish that now. Write it down. What do you want to be when you grow up to be a big boy, so to speak? And then get after it. Come up with a strategy, a process. And the payoff is going to be when you start harvesting the fruits of your labor. Then you'll realize, man, I'm glad I listened to that silly guy acting dumb. I think his name was David Tidwell. In the Army, they call me the Titwell. Okay? So get a little tit, grow up, push your chest out. Don't worship people, and please don't worship money. Money is a necessary tool to get you from point A to point B, but it ain't worth risking your life over. If somebody offered you $1,000 million trillion right now, but in return you had to give up your soul, would you take it? A lot of people would. Don't make that mistake. Your greatest riches is in your family. Having children and grandchildren, etc. Those are the people that are the richest. The really rich people, the crazy rich people, are too busy trying to protect their assets. They're worried sick at night that somebody's going to steal from them or hack their accounts. Don't be that guy. Just get enough to get you by. The Lord will, if he takes care of the sparrows, he'll take care of you. Don't worry. And especially don't worry about what you can't control. Just roll with the punches. We'll get through this Third World War. I hope to God we will. And we'll end up like Mars with no atmosphere. But is the moon hollow? Maybe it is. Maybe was brought in by the aliens to monitor us round the clock, since we're in that Goldilocks realm where everything's supposed to, thrive or be perfect. Even if we did wipe ourselves out 1 billion years from now, there'd be probably another race just like us that would evolve and come, a lot of these bacteria and things come from asteroids that are buried deep in the rock. When they hit the earth, they start new life. It's all, like one famous Jewish woman said, it's all a big scam. So when you're walking down the hall and you see me, if you ever do, you remember the PPP plan? Well, I got my own PPP plan. It means never pass up a restroom. I may have to pee real bad. Never pass up a restroom. Even more important, I never fall down. Old man fall down, he may not ever get up. But the third and most important P is prevent. Easing out that little toot. Some people call it a fart, but never trust a fart. And with that, I say to you, a good day. Just like Paul Harvey. Bye-bye, y'all. Don't take any wooden nickels. I'll talk to you later.